Assalamu alaikum. Hope everyone is still awake. I grew up in Palestine, a place where the echoes of war are not just background noise, but it's the fabric of our daily life. When I started drafting this talk, one of my buried memories came back to me instantly. I remembered one day as a child, lying awake to the sounds of sirens and Israeli tanks passing beside our house. My older brother whispered to me, "Talha, do you think we will wake up tomorrow?" His words, they were not a question. They were a reality check. That memory got buried instantly, but it stayed with me alongside many other memories in my unconscious, shaping my understanding of trauma, fear, resilience, and mental health. Today, I want to speak about trauma-informed care and why it should be central when addressing mental health in contexts where there are wars and displacements and violence. Trauma is an invisible and silent wound that transcends borders. In places affected by war, violence, displacement, it seeps into every aspect of our life. Homes, schools, workplaces. It doesn't only affect the individual, but it affects communities and it fractures families. However, mental health support often remain either culturally mismatched or stigmatized or maybe not accessible for many people. And as I stand here, I'm thinking about myself as that child who was lying listening to these tanks passing by, not knowing if I would wake up tomorrow. I just think how I became this person who would advocate for trauma-informed care to be understood. Not that I wish everyone would go through the same experience to understand what I went through and why I came here now and achieved this in my life. But it's something I don't wish on anyone, but I wish everyone would understand. As I said, trauma is an invisible wound. But when it comes to global health, we need to reimagine global health where trauma is an integral part of it, instead of being optional. At the heart of my work is Decolonised Minds. It's a project that I started with the firm belief that mental health needs to be liberated from colonial frameworks and truly seek to serve those with diverse experiences. Traditional psychotherapy is, I'm not criticizing now anyone here, but traditional psychotherapy is loaded with Eurocentric models that don't account to the intergenerational trauma. These models don't really understand the passed down experiences of being colonized. So I try to go into understanding these diverse experiences. And of course, I would be supporting dismantling any form of therapy that doesn't make the person safe in your room. And when I speak about safety, I don't only speak about the individual physical safety. I speak about cultural safety. I speak about emotional safety, where you can sit there and you don't feel judged. You don't feel all these stereotypes have been thrown at you. The first question for a hijabi woman when she's sitting in a therapy room is not, were you forced to wear your hijab? So this understanding of emotional safety and the cultural safety will keep us all in the link of being humans and being on the same level. During my work with Médecins Sans Frontières in Libya, I met with a young guy in a detention center. He went through unimaginable suffering, trying to cross the desert in Africa, coming all the way to the Mediterranean in Libya to get on a boat to come to Europe. However, he was caught and ended up in a detention center where he's beaten up daily, starved because there's not enough food for them, crowded rooms with the minimal hygiene level for them, and of course, zero privacy. When I met him first, he barely spoke. But through trauma-informed approach, we started small, acknowledging his pain, and then he started slowly, opening with me. He started trust, and then he started dreaming of a life outside those walls that he've been stuck in. And that's only one person's experience, besides the thousands of experience there. Now, when thinking about global health and trying to reimagine it, I would like you to reimagine it with me, where trauma-informed care guides all principles, or their principles guide all initiatives in global health, where we would see global health not as a system of statistics, but it's as a platform for equity, for humanity, and for restoring hope. Try to imagine global health as something where people would feel safe. Again, the conversation about the language, someone speaking your language, you feel like you can relate. So at least offer something for people where they can have a connection to their culture through your room. If it's not someone speaking a language, at least put something in your room with a different language, just to say, I got this as a souvenir when I was in Lebanon, and they'd be happy if they were Lebanese to see that you're connected to their culture. Now, a key component or a key part of my work, as I said, is providing safety. However, safety as well is to ensure that we are not reinforcing the same colonial narrative or the same oppressive narrative where I'm the expert and you're the person who's sitting there helplessly. And that's another way of reimagining mental health and reimagining how trauma-informed care would allow us to see people as people who are able to rebuild instead of broken. It will allow us to see that these people can continue on in their lives instead of these people will need help all their lives. So when we see them as equal to us, that would make them relate and that would make me feel understood. Another story from Palestine. I've always, after every time we'd just have an airstrike or we'd have bombing, we'll see people trying to rebuild their homes. But it's not only about rebuilding our homes there, it's about rebuilding the sense of purpose. Because trauma doesn't affect individuals, as I said. Trauma can fracture communities, and it's the same with healing. Healing is not only about individual therapy. Healing is about communal healing, communal therapy. It's about connecting to others. And when we see that healing is a communal thing, then we need to understand recognizing that resilience is embedded in culture. Resilience is embedded in storytelling. Resilience is embedded in collective action. Resilience is not embedded on one person alone by themselves. And here, I would again ask you the question, before coming to this room, how did you think about yourself as an expert or as a person coming to learn? Because for myself, I sometimes go ahead of myself. I'm having a talk. I'm expert in the topic. But I realized when people are talking, I was like, my speech is really nothing compared to what these people said, because I've had learned even more before coming here. But again, I would humble myself. And that's a very important part with working with people from other culture. Cultural humility. And cultural humility means to be understanding and coming in a good term with, I don't really understand everything about all cultures. So I need to sit there, humble myself, and learn about other cultures. And this cultural humility is where we believe that we can learn. However, it comes with the tax of being uncomfortable. And we need to sit down with this discomfort, process the discomfort. Being uncomfortable is meaning you're giving yourself space to learn, to experience a new thing. And when we speak about an Irish context for trauma-informed care, because trauma is not only about wars and about displacement and systemic oppression, but sometimes trauma happens to people who are living in stable communities, if I could say this word. However, sometimes a middle-class therapist, when they meet with someone from a working class, they are from the same culture, so would ask me, Talha, where does cultural humility comes in? We're both from the same culture. Here's something I try to name. My English is not my first language, but I try to call intra-cultural humility, to understand that their experience is not understood with your context as a middle-class therapist, but you need to sit down on their place and on their chair. You need to have their shoes and walk the life through what they would tell you about their life. And then you would have to learn about them. You will have to learn that some people, just by having a specific address living in part of town, they would be really shy to express where they live because they would feel judged. Some people that I've met practicing in Ireland, they try to change their accent when they're moving to another place because their accent would tell that they are inner city or they are working class. So they would feel that we might be judged. However, all these things play a huge role and mix in trauma-informed care and in global health. But why does this matter with us? It's because we're professionals. It's because we know maybe more than other people where we can target policymakers. So once we know our role in the solution, we can start push and put pressure on policymakers to integrate trauma-informed care into frameworks. For practitioners, we tell them you need to sit and understand and listen to cultural needs. For advocates, we try to make sure that we don't leave any voice unheard. And you could ask yourself, how can we support? Well, again, I'm speaking here, but awareness alone is not enough. We must act, and we must act now. Because acting is the only step towards change. And how can we act? We need to put pressure on the policymakers. At the same time, we need to support organizations that put mental health in the center when there is a crisis setting. We support grassroots organizations that would platform the voices of marginalized people, that will platform the voices of people who have endured war and displacement. Either they're refugees, either they are from the LGBTQ community, and from any other community that doesn't have enough platform to voice their opinions. And as I said, trauma is a silent wound, and it's an invisible wound that we carry around. And by reimagining global health with trauma-informed care being integral to it, we can make sure that this invisible wound is not gone there unquestioned. However, if we would just sit here and wait and hope for a better future, none of us will be attending to this silent wound. Thank you so much.